Welcome. Today we're going to take a look at how we can work with our database projects. We can be able to get information from the actual database itself, transfer it via the controller, and move it into a GUI JPanel subclass using a JTable. I'm in my controller class right now, and I'm working with my public vector method object that returns get query results as a vector. So it takes a query that I'm going to send information to that. I'm going to parse that query off. I'm going to get the results set to null, and I'm going to use the ResultSet to vector method that we looked at in our previous video. I'm going to grab that result and put it inside this as a result. So I have a vector of objects, and return that so I can use it inside my data panel. So that's what we're going to be working with on that. And so again, you can take a look at the video about how to work with this, how to turn your result set into a vector of objects. That's a great video to review more in detail, but now we're going to use that information to actually put it inside our panel. So let's go to our panel subclass. Over here in our panel subclass, you can see I've got our imports right here. I have my vector that I've got imported right there and my default table model. Those are things we're working with to actually work with the JTable itself. And of course, JTable and JScrollPane are where that's happening. I'm not going to go over the data members for that specifically, but I do want to go over the setupTable so we can look at that. For our setupTable method, we're using it so we can put the pane that we're working with to hold it, because we want to put our JTable inside a scroll pane so we can actually work with it more effectively. So tablepane.setViewPortView, and I pass it the results table. And I'm going to put the vertical scroll bar and the horizontal scroll bar policies both to be as needed, because if I can scroll through them when I need to, I've got that availability to look at the data. Those that table pane gets installed inside our panel itself. You can see I've got a menu panel right here and a main panel right there where it's going to be working with on that. So I have that handled inside my setupPanel method. Then we're going to take a look at our updateTable so we can actually work with that, so we can grab that information from there. In that private updateTable method, you can see I've got a default table model I'm creating. I'm going to grab it takes a vector of objects as a parameter for content. I remove the first entry for that to put the headers in there, and I then set my content model to be a new default table. I'll pass it first the content, what's left of that, and then the headers as well. So those are the parameters that I use to actually initialize that, so I can store that data inside there. And I set that model for the results table, and I repaint it so it'll update the information as needed. And that's just handled with a call to my setup listeners, where I'm going to grab the text from that. So my handleQuery right here. And so my query itself, I'm going to grab the text from that, take that query, and set the results as the content to be of the vector of objects for that, and assign that updateTable method the results of that vector. And so that's what we're going to do to take that out. So let's go ahead and look at the project really quick. And I've got the validation stuff you've seen in my other videos, but I've got my query to type right here. And so this is where I'll type the query. So again, when you type the query, make sure you don't put a semicolon in when you send that to the controller. So I'm just going to do a quick result right here. So I'm going to do select, and then everything, and then from, and then I'll choose my students table because it's just a quick one I can simply work with really fast. And I'll submit my query. And you can see I've got the text results right here. So I have just the plain text right there, all the values, but I also have my JTable results right here. And so I can, I've got my student ID information. I've got my first name, and I can use that to drag it up. Because it's in the JScrollPane, I can easily move my contents of my columns around. I can just work through that, and I can scroll through that as needed with that. So I can just stretch this out right here, stretch this out right here, stretch this out right here. And I've got my table right here, so I've got this information, and I can go through that. I've got my first name right there, my last name over here. I can move that information up here. Here's this the phone number. I can stretch that out. My city of where my student belongs. I can grab all that information so I can actually get that in there. I'll change this query to be just, I'll have it to be my select from students, and I want to be only my last names that start with, say, C. So where, and then last name, like, and then we'll do %C %. So I'm only going to get my C results right there and submit that query. And now I've got just these C's right here. And if I use my scroll feature right here, I can go down and I can see how many, there's 228 rows for that. So I have that information right there. I've got a bunch of COs I can just look at. So I'll just change it to CO and grab that result only right there. And submit that query, and now I'm down to only 62 rows. You can see those results right there. All that information, I have that I can easily grab that and work with it. And I do that by using a JTable of a vector of objects. And so again, take a look at the video of how you can actually take that result set and turn it into a vector, and then just to put it inside that object, all you have to do is have that parameter passed. You extract the first value of that vector, the 2D structure, take that first row out, put it as the headers, and then take the remaining content and set as the content of the default table model, attach it to that, repaint your screen, you're good to go, and you have a great opportunity for that. I hope this is a helpful way you can actually use database options inside a Java project. Cheers, see you next time, have a good day, bye-bye.